They fill it out pencil paper and they bring it by. So maybe they're more conscious than we think they are about what they put online. There's some very personal questions in here. In our first year of operation, we gave out 1,700 surveys. We got 1,400 back from students. They aren't required in any way. Nobody gets a grade for it. You just drop it off, and then we try to connect you with what you've asked for. That's an incredible return rate for a survey that you just put out. So the first thing you'll see is the survey. The second thing you'll see is a list of services with numbers provided next to it. This is where I hope you'll spend some time. If you just assume that the denominator is 1,400 and you start looking at that services with the numbers next to it, you can draw your own conclusions about what percentage of students have asked for assistance related to different services that we provide. So when you sit there and look at how many students requested services regarding homelessness, how many students requested services with regard to a food pantry, a clothing pantry, one of the times of real dissonance or discontent for me as a director was when we were first putting these surveys out, and they were coming in and there was nobody working in the center but me yet. And the surveys were coming in and kids were asking for services, and I didn't have those services available yet for students. And that was a very uncomfortable time for me. But I would still contend that the numbers have to come before the services, because you have to know your clientele. You have to know how many students say that they have issues with eating disorders, how many students talk about sexual abuse, how many students talk about domestic violence. What we have at Marietta High School is a database, I think, unlike any other database anywhere in the country, where I literally can go in and click on eating disorders, suicide prevention, sexual abuse, and it will drop me the name, email address, and cell phone number of every student that has requested those services, which is a very different type of intervention plan when we're working with students. And then the last thing you have there is just says, tell us what you think about the Student Success Center. This was actually a part of a grant that we were applying for, and we needed to provide some qualitative feedback about how things were going. And this is just a snapshot in late November. We just put out a sheet that said, tell us how we're doing. And we asked every student, parent, or staff member that came through the Student Success Center for 2 days to give us some feedback. And this is just the sum total of their responses in 2 days. So you can read through there to look and see if kids and families say that the work we're doing is making a difference for them. All right, and that concludes our presentation.
Well, very good. We have some questions, so if you don't mind, just sit there. And, all right, I'll call your number 22. That is, all right.
Thank you, Mr.
Cantrell,
Chairman.
Representative Cantrell.
Hi, Ms. Colburn.
Hi there.
Thanks for being here today. I former teacher in Cobb County, taught at Marietta High School many times when Gordon Pritz
wonderful.
was the principal, did school assembly programs, parent programs, all kinds of things. Very much appreciate what you're doing. I want to make one kind of a political statement, and then I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
I couldn't help but notice in your Center for Behavior Support, one of your partners is the Georgia SHAPE grant. My colleagues know that I sponsored a bill, carried it really for Chairman Brooks here, Coleman, that continues that, because it sunsets in a couple of years. And Chairman Tippins was gracious enough to pass it out of the Senate committee. But it would really be great if one of my Senate colleagues tomorrow could find a vehicle, because it didn't get out of Senate rules, could find a vehicle, and 198 would be a great vehicle for that, to get it out of the Senate tomorrow, so that Marietta's program could continue to benefit from this great program. So I'm just saying to my colleagues. I'm aware I'm too big of a peon. I can't help you on my
I've
side.
got a
But
list
I know
as
you guys
well,
are
if you'd like
bigwigs
to
over
hear it.
there.
It's reciprocal, right.
Ms. Colburn, my serious question is, I know you're only 2 years in, but are there other programs similar to you in the state, and what are you doing to replicate what you're doing in other communities?
Right now, are there other programs similar to us in the state? I'm unaware of any similar to what we do in the state. We give tours twice a week. I would tell you in our first 15 months, we gave over 300 tours to organizations and school districts. I would tell you probably 40%, I think, 30 to 40% of the school districts in Georgia have been to visit. Decatur is looking to launch. Cherokee County would like to launch. Gilmer County, Catoosa County's superintendent's on their way down. So we have many school districts that are interested in launching. And Decatur's gone so far as to give similar student surveys, but none have launched yet. They are looking for funding. They are looking into to Mr. Tippin's comments that we did it without any funding. That's true. I would say, though, that there are districts that will struggle. So I'll throw my own thing in there about SB 30 right now that I understand is sitting on a rules desk as well. But there is something to say for fun. I believe it's in the House.
We did pass that out of my subcommittee, by the way, just saying.
House rules, so somebody might want to hunt that down for me in the next 48 hours. But I would say that I do live in a community where there are established and sustainable nonprofits. When I looked to provide expertise and resources in the area of sexual abuse and domestic violence, I only had to look a mile away to find Holly Tuckman. I'm friends with Neil Campbell, who's the director of Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. I'm on a first-name basis with my juvenile court judges and those kind of folks. So I do think there is a place, particularly as I start working with some of these more rural counties that may not have the sustainable resources in their communities that really provide for homelessness or substance use.
So I live in Cherokee County. You mentioned them.
Charlotte Green has come
Right,
several times.
Know her. So how would we help get this going in my community?
I think you'd call Charlotte, okay, who would be your contact there, and ask her where they are in the process. Their group is very innovative. For instance, when we talked about the food pantry issue, because believe it or not, even in the world of free and reduced lunch, there is food instability all across our state. Not necessarily during school hours, but when they go home. And I don't care if mom gets food stamps or not. If she's selling them for drugs, the kids are still hungry. All right. But Charlotte talked about some pockets of food instability in Cherokee County. And one of the ideas they threw out quite quickly was, well, what if we refabbed a bus and it became more like a refrigerated bus and we took food into the communities and we're able to dispense it that way. So there are some really creative ideas out there. For us, we're a one high school town, so the families just come to the high school and pick up the groceries. But that might not work in a school district that has 6 high schools, for instance. And every one of their 6 high schools might not be dealing with food instability. So you do have to know your high school. I mean, I say if we get the same survey at Walton, which is a school in our community, they wouldn't have the homeless numbers that we have, but I think they'd get us in substance use. I think they'd have more. So it's just a matter of understanding your kids' barriers enough to tailor your programs to that.
The church I serve provides a lot of these type programs, but transportation is such an issue.
The schools have buses.
If they can't get there,
The schools have buses. So you gotta understand, you can't really be a nonprofit inside a school, but we kind of are from the standpoint that the way we're funded. So we provide the structure a lot of times for the churches in our community to do the work that they believe God has commanded them to do, to feed the poor, to clothe the poor, to deal with. They provide us the money, and we connect that resource with that family to do that. Our food pantries and stuff are often underwritten by our faith-based organizations. We're not handing out a tract or a New Testament when I put pasta in a bag, but we're putting pasta in a bag, all right, for kids to go home. So we know where those lines are. But part of that is just the whole magic behind the center is to teach students to self-advocate, to treat them with respect while they're doing so, and to, as timely as possible, match them with the community partner that can provide the funding, the expertise, and the resources to address that barrier.
We have a lot of questions here, so let's keep our questions. All right, number 11. Number 11.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's me.
I'm sorry, Senator. Okay.
So I noticed on the sheet, one of your partners is communities and schools.
Yes, sir.
And I'm on my local board for communities and schools, and what they're doing is similar, but not near the same. So can you just talk briefly on what their role is and what in your vision and what they're doing?
Yeah, I actually think we are the prototypical communities and schools model. I mean, really, that's what we've built. But communities and schools typically places one person in a school that has a caseload of students where they are trying to connect students in the same way we are. The problem with that model is those resources are not readily available in that school. So it becomes handing them a flyer, handing them a business card. I have a communities and schools full-time staff member too, but for her to give food to a student just means she walks a couple of doors down or to connect a student on her case management with mental health just means she talks to someone at the next desk. So I have a communities and schools person in my school that deals with the case management of 100 students struggling academically, behaviorally, and with attendance. But now as she drills down through the community schools questionnaire to get to those root causes, she's able to satisfy those needs for the most part within our center. And my communities and schools person also helps with intake. So when a student turns in a survey, they screen the survey, see if it's a student that could be placed on their caseload, and even if it's not, they still go through a series of questions to help us triage, so to speak, what that student's asked for.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me a quick
One more, yes,
follow-up.
sir.
What was the initial investment to get started?
Our school district gave us $50,000 of charter funds. And that room, that $50,000 we used to new paint, new rugs, and some desk work for our collaborative partnership room. Every other room we had privately endowed.
Great, thank you.
Very good. That's good
So-
use of that charter money you're talking about, that extra money. That was
Yeah.
good use, yes.
Now, I will say there are 3 of us on salary, that's an ongoing expense, but the rest
All right.
was privately
Number
funded.
26, that is,
Say this, they also got the charter school, or charter district innovation grant last year.
right.
Recognized as the most innovative district.
That's right. I was there when they got that big. And I'll tell you another thing that a lot of them are missing out in the schools. Office of Student Achievement has a lot of grants that can be used for things. There are a lot of grants out there if you have a really innovative, creative person to go after. And not only there, but in private industry, Walmart Association, different
Right.
groups that have them.
And we do
All right.
have some grants. I'm cautious that I don't want to become grant dependent.
Very good point. I like
So-
that because that's what you mentioned earlier, Representative, that you don't want to become dependent on others to do it.
Right.
All right, and get people to volunteer like churches as much as possible. 26, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Colburn, this
Right.
was such an inspiring presentation. One of the most interesting things I've heard in a long time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
From looking through your list of partners, one I saw up on the slide was Young Life, and I think that is a Christian-based organization
is.
for engaging students. And my question is whether you faced any legal pushback with your ability to include that in what you offer in your public school setting.
No, we have several different faith-based organizations that work with us. Where we specifically work with Young Life is that they have a program called Young Lives. And Young Lives is a faith-based parenting and parenting program for teen mothers. So when we have a student that is in that situation, I have 17 of them that are teen moms, they simply are exposed to the opportunity to be a part of the Young Lives program if they would like to.
Okay,
They're not
great.
required to be. And if I had a student that was Jewish or Muslim, it would mean we would just find that student a community mentor that was Jewish or Muslim. We don't require, no service that is provided in the center is required. They are all optional.
But you are able to incorporate faith-based offerings into your public school
Absolutely.
setting. Okay, thank you very much.
It's always the choice of the family.
All right, number 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, before I ask you my question, I want to say I want to come and be your school counselor.
Okay. I would love for you to come and spend time with us anytime you
I
like.
would love to visit. Help me better understand how your centers work within the confines of Marietta High School. Kids going back and forth.
Sure.
or moving
We have
around.
10 classrooms, and I will tell you very transparently, when other school districts come and ask me, oh my goodness, how did you get 10 classrooms designated for this? I say, I was the principal and I gave them to myself. Okay? So you just have to understand that's how that worked. And then I got them all privately.
Good leadership.
And then I got
as you
them
can.
all, then I got them all privately endowed so no one could give them back to the school. So there, that is partly just knowing how to work it. But we have 10 classrooms, so students do have to have a pass from a teacher if it's during the instructional day to come and access the services. However, there are classes that, if I've got a student failing math and I want them to have math tutoring during the day, then do we pull them out of PE because they've got a math test tomorrow? Yeah, I'm willing to make that judgment call, and we do that. If I have a student that's in emotional crisis and they show up in the center sobbing that morning, I'm not sending them to class. I'm going to hook them up with their therapist if they're already on a caseload, because they're not going to learn if they're in that classroom anyway. Until we restore some sense of mental balance. So we operate throughout the day. We open at 7 a.m., we close at 5:30 p.m. And so we also provide kids can come during lunch, they can come during elective area, they can come before school, they can come after school. And all staff is there from 2:45 to 5:30 every day to provide services. And that's why we have the buses that will take the kids home.
Very good.
Good
All right,
services.
number 20.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Colburn, again,
Casey,
thank you.
Hi, Sam.
Two things. One, would you go over, there was a phrase you said at the very beginning. You said if you don't catch anything else, it was about getting student feedback. There was a phrase you used. Could you?
Student voice.
Student voice. All right. I wanted to write that down before I forgot it. And then secondly, one of the things, as I got a tour through there, that I thought was fun and innovative, there was, and I'm not going to do this justice, but basically many of the students would go through like a questionnaire process that would help them in terms of their workforce development. Maybe put them on a track of, hey, here's how your personality breaks down. Here are the things that you are naturally going to be skilled at. Why don't you consider studying a little bit more in this area? Would you walk through that program?
Right, because that's not one of the things we've talked about as much today. When you see
Right.
in the Center for Academic Support, you see a lot of things there that say a skills inventory, an aptitude and personality assessment. We purchased 2 programs, one of which was, we were the first public school to pilot in the state, called U Science, YOU Science, the science of you. And it is an amazing program that I hope the state will continue, but it's an amazing program. But the kids take that assessment, and it does an assessment of their abilities, their aptitudes, and their interests, and then it runs those scores on those 21 different, like, mind game, it's like a big computer game, across over 600 different careers. And so it informs us when we go in to do career talks and apprenticeships and stuff on what that student's particular strengths are. Then we also have a program called Naviance that is in our College and Career Center. That is one of the employees that the school district pays for, is a full-time college and career counselor. And that person can take students through Naviance on 600 virtual tours of different colleges and universities across the country. And all of our military recruitment comes through there. Many of those things under the Center for Behavioral Support, interviewing skills, professional etiquette, dress for success. Those are different classes and courses that are all taught through that center.
And I've got one quick. If we have members here who want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for me to put them in touch with you?
If you look on the second to the last page of that program, you will see my desk cell phone number and my email address, and all you have to do is contact me. And I'll tell you when our tours are, and hopefully you'll come. If you want to come and spend a day or shadow for half an afternoon, we're happy to have you there. You want to come volunteer, or you represent an organization you think is aligned with what we do and you want us to know more about it, I'd love to hear from you. So just contact me.
I'd be happy to take the tour with you if any of you guys come through, and
And Sam will give you my cell phone number.
It'll be a fun excuse to hang out together.
Well, I had planned after hearing at the award ceremony and been so impressed, and you did a great job. The video, I wish everybody could see that video you did and the students in there. But I had planned to have as I said, and I do plan to I'd like to do it probably in the fall when it's starting back, because with everything happening with us right now, everybody's so tired. But maybe set up an education meeting.
Absolutely.
And just have them come out there. And I'd like to maybe at that time invite some of these other schools that would like to come. Because I'm convinced, Senator Tippins and I, in looking at this turnaround school and what we're trying to do, I am convinced as we travel around the state, the number one complaint and concern teachers have is poor leadership. You get a good leader like you. I wish we could clone you and just put you all around. A good leader, and we've talked about that, makes it happen. Someone who they make it happen, and the good leadership and that's innovative and creative and wants to try these things. They're not afraid to take the licks like you've done. Right. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what it's all about. But we do, and I'll let you set it up for us, and we'll go out there and we'll visit.
Absolutely.
And have a meeting. And I'd like to invite some of these other superintendents. Some of these areas.
And if you have
in.
superintendents, school board members, principals, you want to come see us, they just use the same contact
And we'll just
information.
open it up and have a good meeting out there. All right, I have the last question, number 27.
I guess it's on. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Ms. Colburn. And I just found out my district is planning to have your system there. So
Good, wonderful.
thank you so much. That's in District 3, Catoosa County.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, and we look forward to seeing that.
Good, wonderful. Thank you.
You know, again, all the work we've done on this education bill this time, it all boils down to this. The wraparound services we've talked about. We can do everything we want to, and I heard you haven't mentioned the academics are still there, but the wraparound is what's so important, and embracing and wrap around these students. So we just appreciate you. Anybody else have anything else to say for the good of the order? I would like for the education committee to stay for about 5 minutes. We have some business we need to take up, but if you could stay, please don't leave because we'd like to
Yes, sir.
interact with you a
Happy
little bit
to.
afterwards. So you can go take a seat somewhere and just relax,
Okay.
and we'll be with you. All right, 17. That's yes, Representative Carter.
I just wanted to say thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you. And the
You
key,
were like my amen corner. You gave me such great cues,
Oh.
verbal cues, and not.
I'm so into what you do. But one of the key things you said, even your startup was $50,000. SB 30 only has $50,000 set aside in the budget, and so in order for us to really implement 338 SB 30, and I can't remember the number of your bill, the governor has to fund it.
I'm
And
gonna
I think
say
that's
this,
what the money is
ladies
the
and
key.
gentlemen. I'm gonna say this to senators here: we must get 237 out. That's the $5 million, the $5 million to get these grants to do some of these things, ma'am. We just need to get it. We've got to have that. That funds all of this stuff we're talking about. And I know y'all are about it. And Senator Tippins, I know you are, and everybody is, and we need that money. So there's $5 million there, you're right, and we just need to, where they can get these grants and try these things. And it's hard to communicate sometimes to some people that what you're talking about with this grants, but the reason many times these things fail, and we're not asking for continuation money, but give me the money to start it, and then we'll keep it up. So I know y'all on it. Senator Tippins told me this morning, we're behind it. So thank you. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, senators, for coming. We appreciate having y'all. Thank you so much.
Will we also be invited when you set up the tour?
Yes, you know what? It's going to be a joint tour. We'll have it. I'll have my representative right here will be in charge, and Representative Teasley will set it up and get you all invited. That'll be a fun visit. All right. Thank y'all so much. All right. If members of the House now, if we could go into session, we have a piece of legislation. If you look on your desk, in your folder, there is a piece of legislation, House Resolution 686. No, that's all right, House. Thank y'all, sir. Help us with that shape. Yeah, we got to get that shape and that money. Remember, money's except the way to say I love you. Let's love it tomorrow. All right. Get it, you get it, I know it. Thank y'all so much. All right, let's look at the House Resolution 686. 686 by Representative Kevin Tanner. Now, he could not be here today. He had business to attend to, so he called me. Matter of fact, here it is on the phone. Have you presented my resolution yet? I'm doing it now. But this is for Representative Tanner. What this basically is, and I'm just going to present it from here if I may, is what he's wanting to do, and is to really, because he's worked so hard on this education, and with some other people that have encouraged him to look at this, is creating a House study committee to look at equitable local education funding and for other purposes. This last 2 years, Representative Carter, I think you were involved with that, with the Governor's Education Study Commission. We looked at funding. And what the House is looking at doing is creating this little study committee made up of 3 people appointed by the Speaker that will involve the House Budget Office, the Governor's people, and they will have up to 5 meetings when they will just look and look at the funding in rural systems and urban systems and all this, and just look at the equity, the equalization, how it's funded, and just to make some recommendations. And that's all they will be doing. It's to be done by the Speaker immediately, and it will be abolished on December the 1st, 2017. They will have 5 meetings, the 3 people, and they can bring in whoever they want to work with it, and they'll make a report if they feel that it's justified, working with the Governor's office also to complement what they have already done, and that's basically what it does. Any questions? All right, I have a motion to do pass. Second, all in favor, aye? Aye. Thank y'all for being here. Y'all are wonderful. All right. Go take a nap.